Well, I always get this short straw and have to talk about wastewater. Again, so I'm Ron Edwards, Water and Sewer District. So I'm going to talk about the Sustainable Solutions Watershed Plan recommendations for 10 minutes maybe.
What?
So in the report, we reached a consensus as an overall group on 5 things. And those things are, we're going to look at upgrading our treatment plant to get to what we call limits of technology. We're going to look at addressing septic systems. Those are largely outside of our district, but this study area is a lot bigger than the water and sewer district, and you have to keep that in mind. We're going to look at ways to expand reuse. Mike teed it up for me very well on our need to reuse groundwater and our water resources more than one time. And then we're going to look at developing reuse strategies for snowmaking, something that's never been done in Montana, and we're on a path to start looking at that. And then we're going to investigate shallow groundwater recharge. So I'll go through each one. The recommended action is to look at treatment strategies that does not negatively impact our waterways. The next steps for our district, you may have read that we entered into a contract at our last board meeting. The board approved moving ahead with it. It's a very significant contract that's going to take some time to work through. We're going to be looking at taking our treatment plant, which went online in 2004, so it's not even 20 years old, but we're going to look at upgrading that plant to try to attain treating to limits of technology. There's kind of 2 options that are earmarked for different engineering evaluations for that. Part of that will be getting detailed costs. I've got 3 engineers on my board. The first thing they ask is how much is this going to cost and how much is it going to cost to run and maintain it over time. So we need to get a lot of detailed information on that to help us make a decision on what kind of treatment plant we're going to be pursuing in the future. This is an aerial view of our current treatment plant. It's called the sequencing batch reactor plant. That was an $11.5 million facility back in 2004. We currently flow about 500,000 gallons a day to that facility. This is a slide that I think does a good job of kind of showing where we are now. This is what we're currently doing. We have this treatment plant, and then we have filtration, and we do a fairly good job with treating the water at this point for reuse, which right now is 100% spray irrigation. The goal is to get up to this point where we can start doing some things like groundwater recharge and snowmaking with water, treated water. Septic systems. We do allow septic trucks to deliver to our plant. We have a receiving station they can dump at our treatment plant. We've talked about developing pumping and maintenance programs largely outside of our district. I think there's an opportunity to expand central treatment services. These could be level 2 type systems or larger, small mechanical plants. And then Mike Richter and his crew is talking about doing another groundwater study in the Canyon area of Big Sky. And here's why. When you look at our district boundary, we are fairly small in the big picture of this study area. These blue dots are groundwater wells from the GWIC site in Butte. And you can see we've got a lot of wells that are outside of our district, which is served by Central Water and Sewer. You can pretty much bet that every one of these well points also has a septic system on it. So there's a lot of areas that I'm done already? Or 5 minutes? She's always in back, keeping me. Expand water reuse for irrigation. We've started working on a few of these things already. We're in meetings now with the key irrigators in Big Sky, talking about ways that we can communicate better and improve the irrigation systems that we have. We're going to look at expanding what we call purple pipe. There's some low-hanging fruit around our golf course areas. The big condo tracks would be fairly easy to connect to the golf course system, start reusing water on those parcels. That does two things for us. It helps our disposal demand as well as it gets them off the drinking water system for large irrigation consumption. In 2018, we hope to have the Spanish Peaks Golf Course coming online. That'll add a third golf course to our overall disposal scheme here in Big Sky. And then we're also looking at expanded irrigation up in the Yellowstone Club and Spanish Peaks. Right, so there's the Meadow Course, Spanish Peaks, and the Yellowstone Club Course. These two golf courses have been online for quite some time. And then probably the most promising thing at this point is looking at snowmaking and looking at the treatment options. So this engineering work is a necessary part of not only groundwater disposal options, but snowmaking, if we're going to go down that road. We're going to have to assess the feasibility of it. We're going to have to work with Boyne and the club, our resort neighbors, to make this work. We've got to work with MDEQ to figure out how you would permit snowmaking facilities, because there are none. And then the cost and funding for that. How we would do it, we've actually hydraulically, we're pretty close. This is the current pond in Spanish Peaks under construction. There's piping in place to get to a second pond. This is lower Southern Comfort. We're not very far away. So all the piping pieces are there. The next step is to figure out how we can actually implement it for snowmaking. Shallow groundwater, looking at ways to do groundwater disposal, and that could be, you know, there's been a lot of talk about deep well injection. I don't think that's going to work for us up here, but we could look at large engineered drain fields, for example. And there's some areas around Big Sky that we want to look at. We'll work with MDEQ for groundwater discharge permits in the event we do go down that path. Again, there's cost, and then I do think there's a potential for water right mitigation if you get into groundwater disposal options. And these are some of the areas around the meadow that we're going to evaluate with our engineers. These are the Track B areas adjacent to the golf course. This is the area that Mike loves to call the meat hole or meat bucket right here. And so right now we do spray irrigation in these areas, but there may be opportunities to do like an engineered drain field in those areas. And questions, I guess, are at the end, so I'm done.